Hey guys, I'm Matthew.
I'm Liv.
And welcome to another Series 10 review here on the Who Are. Today, me and Liv are joined by the wonderful Jacob Martin. What are we reviewing today, Olivia?
Is it Extremis? Or yeah, it is Extremis.
It's Extremis. Remus. Not Remus. Sounds like a cream for a disease or something.
The episode title.
It's just as baffling
It's
as the episode.
baffling as the episode.
Yeah.
Typical Moffat.
More on that in a bit. Enjoy.
Enjoy. If my Sonic would care to work. The Sonic's broken!
Okay, so here we are, halfway through Series 10 already. That is absolutely incredible how quickly this series has gone so far. And I think it's safe to say that we have hit probably the most baffling episode of the series, and one that it's taking a long time to get our heads around. Can't we all agree on that?
Yeah, I think this episode actually is not just the most baffling of Series 10, but probably one of the most baffling episodes we've had ever, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It took more than a first watch, and probably for some people more than a second watch, to really truly get their head around what this episode was trying to achieve and what was actually going on. So before we delve deep into what happened in the episode itself, because there's a lot to delve deep into, what are all of our first initial thoughts on Extremis?
Confusing, a bit messy, and very, very filler.
I to be honest, I still don't properly know, because I think overall I did like it, but I think it did take more concentration than previous episodes, but I think I liked it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
in the same boat sort of thing. I mean, looking on Twitter and stuff, like the initial reaction was incredibly negative. And, you know, as the Who haters, which we are dubbed, I kind of sat and found myself a bit surprised. I thought, wow, are we the only ones who didn't absolutely despair, hate this episode? I mean, I didn't hate it as much as other people did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, it was difficult to get to grips with, but I wouldn't say it was unwatchable or enjoyable or, you know, horrible like any of the other previous episodes we've got.
Yeah.
So were any of you surprised by the reaction that this episode got?
Yeah, I was a bit, because we have to consider that this is the first part of a three-parter, so I think it's quite hard to judge it as a standalone, because, obviously you should be able to watch like episodes like Extremis as a standalone episode, but you have to kind of consider the fact that that's the first part of a three-part story, so it's kind of hard to judge how good it was on just the first part.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, that's the outlook that's the perspective I'm trying to have on this episode, is that I'm trying to look at the bigger picture, because if this episode was on its own and it wasn't connected to any, you know, future parts, it was just a standalone story, then I think we could all agree that it probably is the weakest of the series.
Yeah.
But I think if you have a broader outlook on it, I think we can't 100% judge this episode until the three parts over with, because at the end of the day, it is solely there to set up a story.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's the positive I kind of took from it. I thought it wasn't the best episode on its own, but it did its job, because its job was to set up what's to come next and to kind of keep you intrigued into what's coming. And I say it did that for me.
Yeah, I think with things like like I said, like with three-parters, you can't really. I don't see how people can say they hate it, because it's not a full story. So I'm hoping that, I know you said on the live stream yesterday that by the end of the three-parter, people will be able to look back on Extremis and say, actually, that was a really good setup for the other two episodes.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it was the vintage Steven Moffat story, really. I mean,
timey-wimey, so timey-wimey.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it reminded me, I dare say, of the Wedding of River Song.
Oh God!
In the fact that there was sort of there's two separate. Yeah, I know. I'm not going in that direction, as in I hate it that much, but just like the layout of the episode, it's like it had two separate stories sort of running parallel to each other. Like we had the Doctor and Missy with this strange death thing going on. I don't even know what that was. And then we had the Veritas thing on the other side, and it's sort of like we had bits and pieces thrown in here and there, but we're not sure how they all kind of string together yet. So I think this will ultimately be judged on the payoff, and I know I don't want to put a negative spin on it, but Steven Moffat is not known for having good payoffs.
No.
So I'm praying to God that once the Pyramid at the End of the World is done, and is it The Lie of the Land?
Yeah.
Episode 8, I'm hoping that once that is over with, we can look back all round and think it was a great three-parter. So should we delve deeper into the story itself? Does anyone want to start on any particular scene or any particular aspect of the story?
I do.
Ladies first.
Because I kind of feel that the Vault story arc was, it has been a missed opportunity. Because that story arc started off so well, and then all of a sudden in this episode, and we all found out that Missy was in it. And then after watching the episode yesterday, so I felt like there was this massive missed opportunity in a way.
Yeah, because and the thing that kind of didn't make sense to me is that we never actually got to see Missy in the vault.
Exactly.
And so the reveal, like it was disappointing anyway because it was obvious that Missy was in there.
Yeah.
But even the reveal of it was even more disappointing because he just said, "Oh, he was just having a conversation. He just like dropped Missy's name in the script, and it just seemed a bit like, oh, Missy's in there. What a surprise! It's a bit of a shame. Like, even though we expected it, I kind of was holding out hope that it would be something different, but
yeah, I agree.
It kind of flopped for me.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think the way that they did it as well, I think the fact that Missy was in there wasn't the problem. I think the problem was how they handled it, because the fact that they revealed it in a throwaway line at the very beginning. I mean, it was literally the first scene, I think, one of the first scenes. The Doctor just threw that line in there, just mentioned Missy's name. And we all thought, oh, it just had no climax to it. It felt cheap, it felt underwhelming. And I think because it was revealed in such a quick, anticlimactic way, I think all the scenes with the Doctor and Missy that came after that felt a little bit pointless, a little bit lackluster, like they didn't have to be, like I didn't care as much.
I didn't at all.
If they'd have just had Missy appear, if they'd have had Missy come out at the very beginning with their monks or whatever, and then at the very end it's revealed that Missy's in the vault, then it would make for more of a big ending and it would make more sense and it would have more of an impact. But I think the way they did it, in a throwaway line at the very beginning, it just made the rest of that side of the story feel very weak.
Yeah, and talking of like the plot, like before the titles, it was all like real, but from what we can tell is that everything after the title sequence, apart from obviously the scenes with Missy and that with the whole execution thing, they were all in a simulated world. So that leaves the question of if any of the events that happened in the episode actually had any effect. Do you think the story kind of developed anything, or do you think it's all a bit pointless?
Pointless, to be honest.
It's hard to tell, really. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I thought the idea of there being like a simulated world, I mean, because I'm like a massive gamer, I mean, Jacob, we go on games every other night pretty much. The whole simulated world idea kind of related to me a little bit. I thought that was quite cool. But at the same time, looking back on the episode, there is a side of you that kind of thinks, well, that was a bit of a waste of time. It really just depends on how far that goes in this three-parter. If it's never mentioned of again, and it was simply just a simulated world so this demon can practice killing, then it will feel a little bit pointless. That's the big issue we've got. It's so difficult to judge. But at this moment in time, it was a good idea, but there is a part of me that kind of feels like it was just there to keep the episode ticking, and it might not actually have that much of an effect on the rest of the story, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did actually quite like it, because even though obviously it didn't really have any consequences, it did kind of let us in to see obviously what the monks are planning to do and take over the world, and it has also showed the potential that could unfold obviously in the real world in the next couple of episodes.
Yeah, I mean, what did you think of, because obviously inside the simulator world they had this, the Veritas, and and it was this book of some sort. It had some writing, and am I right in saying that when people translate it or read it, they die?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the point of the Veritas is that it contained this concept of like the shadow tests and stuff, which basically made the people who read it realise that they weren't real and they were just a simulation, which then like made them basically not want to live because they weren't real. I believe that's what it was. That's the point of the Veritas, is that it made people realise they weren't actually living.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that, to be honest. I'm not really sure. I mean, I would have preferred it if it was just some ancient... I mean, I don't think... there's some good ideas going on in this episode, but I don't think they all really fit together that well.
It doesn't.
The simulated world's a good idea. This book that, kills people after reading it's a good idea, but I think the way that these pieces were put together doesn't make too much sense. I mean, it took a very, very long, well, two very, very long talkative scenes at the end of the episode to explain what the hell's going on. So I think with what's going on in this story, if they could have maybe spread this across 2 parts, it might have made more sense. It might have felt a bit more easygoing. Yeah, I mean, that's one problem I guess I could say I had with this episode, is it wasn't a fluent viewing. Yeah. It felt like it was a bit jumpy here, there and everywhere, and I think maybe, do you think they were trying to do too much, get too much explained in one 45-minute episode?
Do you also think that Steven Moffat was also trying too hard with his story?
Possibly. I know in an interview Steven Moffat did actually admit that he was trying to bend Doctor Who to its limit to see, how dramatic and abstract he can make Doctor Who. And to be honest, because people were saying that this episode was pointless and it didn't do anything, but I think it makes much more sense to have this episode alone rather than having to cram all of it in and explain the simulation idea within the first 5 minutes of a 2-parter. So I think they made the right choice in making it a 3-parter. I think one episode was probably enough to explain it, but I don't know if it was done well. And another problem I do have with the simulation idea is that I don't quite understand how the simulated Doctor was able to email the real world Doctor, because it's not like if you're playing GTA, a character doesn't just come out of the screen and just tell you some information about real life, does it? I don't quite understand that.
Yeah, I mean, at first I thought that was a good twist, but I guess when you look deeper into it, it's one of them grey areas, like in Doctor Who, how far do you suspend your belief? Can you just accept it and get on with it? Or do you want that to be explained? I mean, one thing I will say, just briefly, about the sonic shades, I mean, I know I'm noted as probably the person on YouTube that hates them the most. But to be honest, this was the perfect episode for them. I wish...
It was.
And I know...
It really was.
This probably has, no effect on the story itself and doesn't really matter too much, but I wish that the sonic shades had been introduced in this episode instead of them being introduced in a tacky, lazy way in The Magician's Apprentice.
Yeah.
It would have made perfect sense for the Doctor to just say, I broke my sonic screwdriver, I'm blind, sonic shades, they will help me see, they will help me still be able to do things. That would have been perfect.
Exactly.
Just putting it out there. But yeah, it's a grey area, that the email thing at the end. I mean, I guess it's something you've just kind of got to get on with. But as the episode kind of goes into its, the 30-minute mark when Bill and Nardole are going through them simulated worlds, and then the Doctor has to explain it all at the end, it does feel like a lot is trying to be explained, a lot is trying to go on in such a short period of time. If anything, I don't think it pieced the episode together. I think it probably made it even more confusing, and left viewers not feeling...
Baffled?
Yeah, they didn't leave the episode feeling satisfied with the explanation. They probably left the episode feeling baffled and completely unsure on what was going on.
Yeah.
What about... Should we talk about characters? Individual characters?
Wait there, I want to say something on Nardole.
Oh, okay. Nardole.
Yeah.
I thought that this episode was Nardole's best episode.
Me too.
He was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
His performance, he was harsh and funny. he was very funny in this episode. I liked him a lot in this episode. And finally, we also got an explanation of how Nardole and the Doctor met again.
Yeah, I think this was I mean, considering, if you went back to the pilot review, we absolutely drilled through Nardole.
Hated him. We did.
And despite us not being present for the reviews of episodes 2, 3 and 4, I've got to say, I don't know if this praise... I do. I think this praise goes to the writers, and I think this praise definitely goes to Matt Lucas. I think he's done an amazing job, because I honestly, at the start of Series 10, I found it extremely difficult to see a way of how they could make Nardole an acceptable companion. Yeah, I really struggled to find a way and see a way of how he could have become a credible character. But somehow, they've done it, and I think it's down to Matt Lucas's performance, because, he was probably one of my favourite comedic actors before Series 10, but I think we were all a bit unsure on if he could deliver on the more serious sort of stuff. But in this episode especially, I thought Matt Lucas was brilliant. I thought Nardole was a much more all-rounded character. And isn't it just really strange how much more invested you are in a character once you've been given a reason to accept him?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jacob, where do you stand on Nardole? Because I know you didn't hate him as much as we did originally, but do you also kind of see an improvement in his character?
Oh yeah, definitely. I did know, before the series, I wasn't keen on the idea of him being in the whole series, but I think slowly as this series has progressed, and he has become more likable, I think. And in this episode, I think he was actually one of the best factors of this episode, actually.
I agree.
I'd actually go as far as saying that, and I never ever thought I'd say that. I never thought I'd say Nardole would be one of the best parts of this episode.
No, I didn't.
But whereas before, when he was trying to be serious in the pilot, or in little scenes in Smile and stuff, when he was trying to be serious, you just looked at him and you thought, don't be stupid. I'm not buying that. And when he was trying to be funny, you just sighed and thought, stop trying to be funny. But all of a sudden, all his jokes were cracking me up. I felt like I was watching the same Matt Lucas that I watched when seeing Little Britain or Come Fly With Me, the one that generally made me laugh. But also when he was trying to be serious with Bill, that scene when he turned around, took his glasses off, and basically gave Bill a speech on why he has to protect her. Before, I'd have looked at him and went, oh, shut up, Nardole. Stop trying to fit in. But when he did that scene, I was like, yes, go on, yes, no, I
Nardole's a badass.
Yeah, I believe you, I'm right behind you. And then, when he's trying to act cool and he turns and then he shrieks, that was funny.
That was so funny. It was really funny.
That's the perfect balance that I think they've got with Nardole now. I just hope this continues. That's my only worry.
I do.
Is that he might go back into cracking silly jokes and being at the end of sentences to make things funny. But if he continues to have the part he has, I'm all for it.
I am.
Yeah, and so moving on to something else that I know that you don't like. I don't actually know what you've said about it, but I guarantee that you don't like it. But River's Diary made a couple of appearances in this episode.
Yeah, I'm not. I really don't see I wouldn't say I'm furious or mad about it, but I was kind of left as more thinking, why was that there?
Me too.
Was it to explain why Nardole's back, or was it to give the Doctor some moral motivation for something? Was it to do with the Doctor and Missy's threat? What was that there for? What was the point? Was it fan service? What was it?
I'm not sure. It felt a bit forced to me. I don't know about you.
River's Diary being in there, and that just confused me even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there was a lot of extra parts of this episode that kind of didn't need to be there.
Exactly.
And if anything, they just interrupted the story. I'd probably go as far as to say that the scenes with Missy and the Doctor, they did feel a bit interruptive.
And filler.
Yeah, like I said earlier in the video, if they hadn't revealed, that Missy was in the vault, I'd have been into these scenes. But I felt like, since we knew that Missy was in the vault, I felt like these scenes were just interrupting the episode, interrupting the story, taking me out of the moment. they could have simply just explained why Missy was in the vault in one scene after that, but they chose to have continuous scenes that kept popping up when you didn't want them to be there. And if anything, Missy's death and resurrection was completely predictable. I thought that there was certain parts of the story that just got in the way, really.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I do. It has made me ask the question about why what did Missy do to deserve the execution? Because obviously she's getting killed off for some reason, but we don't actually know why. I don't know if that will be explained. I kind of hope it does, and Moffat doesn't just forget about it and move on like it didn't happen.
Yeah, I really do hope it's explained. I mean, one note I've got here is that Missy's inconsistent appearances continue, because although obviously throughout Series 8 she popped up here, there, and it was made sense of in the end, and then when she was in Series 9 they did have a throwaway line of how she survived being shot by the Cybermen. But at the end of Which Is Familiar, when she was left with the Daleks, I honestly thought that that was going to be the next big villain. Missy teaming with the Daleks. She's done it with the Cybermen, now she's going to do it with the Daleks. But I guess the way that she walked in and said, that's the word with the Daleks or something, I mean, is that supposed to, clear that off, and is that what we're left with? For me, I just feel like her appearances there's no continuity there. And the way she just pops up here and there and everywhere, I don't think that's a good thing. Myself, I would have preferred to see her come back with the Daleks. And it just kind of makes that whole Which Is Familiar ending, where you think that there's going to be a massive team-up coming, kind of leaves that on a bit of a sour note, really.
Making that point there, Matthew, then do you feel now, making that point, that this is the reason that all of us just can't get quite on board, Missy?
Maybe. I mean, it's obvious. I think the lack of continuity with the character is affecting how much we care for her as the Doctor's arch enemy. I mean, she was the focal point at the end of Series 8, which was good. But since then, I mean, Jacob, can you think of a legitimate thing that Missy has done since Death in Heaven that has had a lasting effect on the Doctor Who universe in any sort of way? Because for me, it just feels like pointless cameos that have been there to not really contribute to the plot.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, from what we've seen of her this series, I feel like she's going to be more of a friend to the Doctor in this series than before. Like, because obviously in previous series, Missy's been a bit like, she's been more of an enemy character, but like the Doctor, they seem to be on kind of equal level with like they seem to be friends now for some reason. So I don't know if they're going to team up, and then maybe she'll. I don't even know how to begin to think about how John Simm's going to come into it.
Oh no!
But,
oh dear God, no!
But yeah, Missy's just. I think we can just all agree that Missy's just a bit. We're a bit confused as to why she's there. And I'm just hoping, again, that Steven Moffat's going to be able to give us a reason as to why she's there and what she's doing. And she's not just there for the hell of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I can't... I don't know about you, but I just... The way that she popped up and the Doctor was like, she's my friend, I can't kill her. I know the Doctor and the Master have always had this strange love-hate relationship, but I do feel that the way that one minute they hate each other, the next minute they are best friends, because there's not been a fluent story in between every time they've come together, I can't really believe that. Whereas with John Simm and the 10th Doctor, with their dynamic, I think with how that was written throughout the Series 3 finale, with them both wanting Gallifrey back, they had there was a common denominator in what they both wanted, but they still kind of... There were similarities in what they both wanted, which was obviously their home planet and stuff, but the Master was sort of like the young kid spitting his dummy out spitting his dummy out sort of thing. And then in the end of time, again, there was sort of a love-hate relationship there, but it still felt organic, it still felt real, whereas with the 12th Doctor and Missy, it doesn't feel as organic, it doesn't feel as right, the way that one minute they love each other, next minute they hate each other. There's just no continuity with their relationship at all. And I think the way that Missy, how she is written, especially in this series, I think is going to have a massive impact on that, because if she just pops up in the finale and that's that, then I'm going to be a bit disappointed.
I am.
Again, I want them to be an explanation behind that. One thing I will say is, I think, and this is not knocking Pearl's performance at all, because I thought she was good in the scenes she was in, but I would probably go as far as to say this was Bill's weakest episode.
Yeah, I've got to agree.
Because for me, she was just kind of walking around corridors asking questions, and I felt like she didn't really contribute anything to the story. So although it's nothing against the character, I just felt like this was probably Bill's weakest episode, which isn't really a bad thing, because I think she set the bar really high for herself because she's been that good this series. But I would say this was the weakest episode for her. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think she wasn't a bad character in this episode, but in comparison to the previous episodes of Series 10, she's not quite as, I don't know, prominent as before, and she did seem to be a bit kind of just there as a companion, and Nardole seemed to be taking charge more than her, like, because obviously they were a bit independent for about half the episode, and Nardole kind of stepped in as the authority over her. But yeah, Bill, I think I still like Bill.
Oh yeah.
And I think she's still a really good character, but like you said, it's just she wasn't as strong as previously.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm really hoping that she has more of a part to play in the next 2 episodes, because another reaction I saw on Twitter was people kind of saying that, you know, the fresh, enjoyable, fun Doctor Who that we had for the first 5 episodes has gone, and we have returned back to the timey-wimey Steven Moffat convoluted nonsense. And a lot of people were saying that, you know, Bill has felt fresh, she's felt like a breath of fresh air for the first 5 episodes, but with her being, you know, introducing her with a so-called, you know, a date, her mum's jumping in, she's not having much of a part to play. A lot of people were kind of saying that we are starting to step back into the sort of Doctor Who that we've had in recent series, with timey-wimey stuff here, there and everywhere, and Bill, I wouldn't say feeling like Clara, but not having that sort of independent, fun breath of fresh air that she's been. Would you agree with that? Would you say that we feel like we've stepped back a little bit, or is it too early to really say?
I think it's too early to say on that point.
What do you think, Jacob?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. I mean, she's definitely not like Clara, but she does seem to be like... The start of the series, it was all kind of about Bill and all focused around her, but now we seem to be kind of taking a step back.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I think people were definitely overreacting when they were saying stuff like that on Twitter, but yeah, the fun, enjoyable run around Doctor Who, where we had fun episodes each week that we could really enjoy, has kind of stopped a little bit. Would you say the momentum in this series has kind of jolted a little bit, or do you still think it's going on at a really sort of good pace?
I think it's going on at a good pace still. I just think the tone of it has kind of changed.
Yeah.
Because especially for the first couple of episodes, it was quite light-hearted and nothing, you know, too serious. But I think now it's kind of becoming a bit... I wouldn't say Series 4 specials type serious, but it seems to be getting a bit of a more serious tone. But I don't know, I kind of like that, I think. But I'm just concerned for people who aren't like us and, you know, dedicated Doctor Who fans. These kind of episodes are a bit risky.
Yeah, they are.
And like, well, I know my mum, for one person, she didn't particularly enjoy it because she likes the light-hearted kind of, like you said, run-around episodes, whereas these ones require the fans, really, to understand all of the plot points and everything.
Yeah, and even us devoted fans struggled at first.
Well, yeah, that says something, doesn't it?
Yeah, so you have to imagine what, you know, someone who's just been introduced to Doctor Who, you know, might think.
Yeah,
exactly. It might put them right off.
Exactly.
That, you know, it's been so fun and, you know, easygoing so far that, you know, this might put them off. I mean, that's been one of the biggest criticisms of Doctor Who recently in the last couple of years, is it's not been accessible. And you've had to know a hell of a lot before you can jump on board. So I'm just hoping that the Pyramid at the End of the World and the Lie of the Land are a little bit more easygoing. One big positive I will say is I thought the monks were fantastic.
Oh, I love them. They were so creepy.
They looked terrifying.
Yeah, their design, the look, the way they were speaking, everything about them I thought was absolutely brilliant. And I cannot wait to see where
More
they
of
go
them.
in the next episode. Yeah, and I can't wait to see, you know, this so-called demon. I think there was a demon mentioned, who obviously wants to take over the world, create this. I can't wait to see who's behind all of this. I mean, could it be John Sims' master? Could he be behind it all?
I don't know. Maybe it was just the monks. Or maybe there's like a king monk somewhere.
A bigger monk.
Yeah.
The king of the monks, maybe. So I thought they were brilliant. Anything else that you guys want to bring up? Because I think we've covered everything. I mean, what about the Doctor's blindness? I mean, I know some people saw that, you know, at the end of last episode, they thought that it was a bit of a naff cliffhanger. They thought it was a bit unnecessary. What did you think of the Doctor being blind in this?
The Doctor being blind aspect is... yeah, still making me, like, confused by it all type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it added an extra edge to this episode myself.
I quite liked it, because, I like you mentioned earlier with the Sonic sunglasses, I was actually quite worried that the Sonic sunglasses were going to, like, give him vision, but I quite like the fact that his vision, even with the sunglasses, was still limited, and he couldn't, like, I did like when Nardo was, like, saying, oh, a bright light has shone round the corner.
Yeah.
I found that quite nice, and I think, like I said in last week's review with James, the Doctor is in a much more vulnerable position than he is before, and, like, when he thought he didn't recognise the monks initially because he was blind, and I don't know, I think, like you said, it adds something that we aren't quite used to, and I don't know, I'm just hoping that it'll pay off, because it didn't seem too forced for me, so I don't know, I quite like the Doctor being blind in a harsh way.
Yeah, I liked how he got his vision back for a little bit and then lost it again, because when he first got his vision back, I thought, oh, is that him back to normal now? Is his vision still back? I thought, oh, that didn't last long. But then when he was trying to read the Veritas and his vision started going and the monks were, you know, they were coming closer to him, I thought that was brilliant. You know, his vision was starting to go impaired and he was getting closed down by all these scary creatures, and then he lost his vision again.
And can I just say, that was really good directing as well from Daniel Nettheim, I think it was. I think that scene was quite... It made you feel like you were kind of with the Doctor and not being all distorted in your vision.
Yeah, I thought the direction was brilliant. I mean, I actually saw a few people saying that the direction was good, but the editing was a little bit weak in places.
Oh yeah, that is something I noticed with the editing, especially jumping between the parts with Missy and the Doctor, and then going back to the Veritas thing. I thought the editing was a bit
all over the place.
It's a bit short. Like it made me, in a way, it made me think there was going to be an advert at some point, like where it just faded to black and it all went quiet. I was expecting an advert to pop up or something. It wasn't very well edited. I don't know why that was the case for this episode, but yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought that.
Yeah, the last thing an episode like this, with so much going on, so many different scenes going on in so many different places, the last thing an episode like this needs is poor editing. I think it needed the best editing possible to keep the episode going in some sort of fluent manner, but it didn't really help the episode whatsoever. But it's nothing huge. It's not like...
Yeah, it's not like... It's just a nitpick, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a very small nitpick. So is there anything else that you guys want to bring up with Extremis before I say it wrong?
Can I just say, why the heck was the Pope in this episode? It made absolutely no sense. Like, the Pope just appeared. Like, what the heck was that about?
I don't know. I guess it was all to do with the Vatican and stuff. It did seem a little bit odd, but...
Silly.
Yeah.
Like I was saying about River's Diary, it's just one of them things that was in there, and it just didn't really do anything. It
didn't make me hate the episode, but
it confused things further, pretty much.
It did.
So do we want to conclude on Extremis? I think we've done pretty well to cover the majority of it.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first with their conclusion and final thoughts and a rating with this episode?
Liv can if she wants.
I can go first if you want. Okay. In conclusion to this episode has got to have been the most baffling and swan confusing episode of the series, and I was really disappointed as in the vault storyline stop with in below with Missy being in it, because that left me feeling like a massive missed opportunity with the vault storyline. The positives for this episode was this episode was Nardal's best performance to date. He was harsh and funny, and I laughed at him. And also the sonic sunglasses were also made good use of, but and it's a story to also sit down and watch and enjoy. It is hard, so as my rating, I'm gonna have to go 4 out of 10.
Oh, 4.
Yeah,
that's quite low.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It is quite low. It's just because that this episode just baffled me.
Fair enough.
interesting.
Well, for me, Extremis is a typical Moffat type story which requires more concentration than the average episodes and obviously the rest of the series. Although you should be able to watch episodes as standalone, I believe that the next 2 episodes of this story will be able to make it or break it, really. It'll make it a big difference on how we look back on Extremis. As for the monks, I really like them, and they appear to be a real threat to the Earth. And I'm interested to find out how they pay off, and I'm hoping that they don't just get kind of used badly. I did like the simulation idea, and it was kind of used well at highlighting the imminent danger for the next 2 episodes. But I'm quite unsure about how it's possible for the simulated Doctor to contact the real world version of himself. As for Missy, I found her a bit redundant in a way, and I'm not quite sure the relevance of her. And obviously her being in the vault was obvious, and it wasn't executed well in her reveal. And in my opinion, Extremis was Nardal's best episode yet, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he develops throughout the rest of the series. But overall, I think I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Wow, okay. Fair enough. Okay, I've got... Extremis was an episode full of good ideas that didn't string together particularly well. The nice, easygoing, enjoyable run is over, and now the timey-wimey, convoluted arc begins. The idea behind the Veritas was intriguing, although it got lost in the background in between all the convoluted nonsense that took place in the middle. The Missy reveal was predictable and anticlimactic, and all her scenes were pointless and interruptive that followed. I thought the mugs were great, and I can't wait to see more of them, as was Nardal, who, like we say, had his best episode yet. But for me, Bill unfortunately had a weaker story so far. She didn't really do anything other than walk around asking questions, despite Pearl's performance being great again. The simulation malarkey, it kind of dug the episode into a deeper hole of confusion for me. But overall, Extremis, I think it was a hard, jittery, tough watch, which I wouldn't call enjoyable. However, it did leave me intrigued into what will happen next, which I guess is the point of a first part, after all. But like we all say, it'll ultimately be judged once the whole arc is over, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I think this is. I mean, we're halfway through Series 10. I think now is a good time to not... Obviously, we can't fully judge the series, but so far, where do you think Series 10 ranks in terms of other Moffat series?
Ooh,
That's a hard one.
That is a hard one.
I mean, we're halfway there now, so I think this is a good point to kind of look back and judge the series so far.
I think overall I'm liking it. Like, I mean, there have been a few weak points, but even then, the episodes as a whole have actually been quite good in my opinion. So, I don't know, I feel like I actually prefer them to most of the Matt Smith series, to be honest. I'm not quite sure, because it depends especially on, well, the next 2 episodes of the 3-parter, but I think the finale is just going to be a big turning point for the series, and I think the finale is going to be a deciding factor on how good it is. A bit like, because I know Hellbent didn't exactly give you the best impressions of the last series, so I think the finale is going to be quite pivotal for Series 10.
Yeah, what about you, Liv? Where do you think Series 10 ranks so far for you?
I think it's better than Series 8 and 9, I think, but then my other half of my head is saying, well, yeah, you also don't know that yet. With it was this the end of the 3-parter to come, and the finale still to come. So I'm unsure.
Yeah, I think so far
it's quite difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, so far I think it's better than Series 9. I think. I'm not sure on Series 8. It's definitely better than Series 6 and 7. I don't think it's better than Series 5.
No, I don't.
I mean, of course, the finale is pivotal. I think the Series 9 finale was pivotal, and in the same way, Series 10 will be. But I think the next 2 episodes are massive as well.
Yeah.
With how this has paid off. I mean, a 3-parter, 3 episodes, that's a quarter of the series. This 3-parter is taking up quite a large chunk of Series 10, and then after that we've got, 2 standalone episodes before the finale. So, yeah, it's a big moment for the series. And we can't, like we say, we can't judge Extremis properly yet, but I think it's been a really good series so far. As for Extremis, in terms of ranking so far this series, I dare say it's probably side by side with Smile as the weakest. But I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. I think the likes of Knock Knock, Thin Ice, The Pilot, I think they've all been so good that Extremis is weaker, but it's still not a bad story by any means.
No, it isn't.
So, yeah, that's everything that we've got on Extremis. Overall, a tough story, a controversial story, but I would still say a good story.
Yeah, and it will lead on to the next 2 episodes, obviously. So we'll have to wait and see how it leads on to the next 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Indeed. So that's our review, guys. Thank you very much for listening. So then, guys, there's our review of Extremis. It was a long one, but my goodness, there was a lot to get through.
Baffling, confusing, timey-wimey. Definitely a Moffat episode.
Definitely a Moffat one. Yeah. So like this video if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe to our channel for more Series 10 reviews and previews to come. And our next preview will be this Wednesday, which will be a preview of The Pyramid at the End of the World, which is already a lot more self-explanatory than Extremis ever will be. But yes, hope you enjoyed that review, and we'll see you next time.
Boom.